every single slide that I have, but I like to read our mission because I think it's really important that we center ourselves around that mission as members of the Reading League and know that we're all in this together, pushing this mission forward and supporting our educators across the state. So feel free, if you're not a member yet, you can always join us. We have that QR code, and like Kristen said, we'll drop more links in the chat so you can always join up at any time. There's a lot of words up here on the screen now, but this is our vision, and I'm just going to give folks a moment to read through those 4 bullet points, and then in the chat, just make a note or contribute which one of those bullet points is really standing out to you today or is really resonating with you in the work that you're in at this point in the beginning of the school year. We'll just take 2 or 3 minutes to do that. And welcome to those who are just joining us. We are just taking a moment, centering ourselves in this work tonight and in community as members of the Reading League California, reading through the different bullet points for our vision and then just sharing in the chat if there are any specific ones that are really resonating with you today. I see Nicola's disrupt literacy inequities. Yep, Tiffany, understand how to build quality reading programs from preschool to grade 12, absolutely. Another one, disrupt that literacy and equity. That's a huge piece of this work, isn't it? And we are an inclusive organization. Beautiful, science aligned, absolutely. Great, Terry. Thanks, Olga. That's great, everyone. I love all of your contributions so far. So you can continue to add those comments to the chat. And we're going to step ahead to our next part of the presentation, but thank you for all of that. We just like to introduce our different members of the executive board. You can see there are many of us here working hard, volunteering our efforts to keep this nonprofit running. So it's all volunteer. We also have another board member working, providing her knowledge, and we appreciate her. And then we have our advisory board members. So we have a boatload of talent here in our advisory board, and we're so grateful to have them as a part of our team. So we are off and running already. So you're here today at this event, and we have many more coming up over the next few months. You can see here, we'll talk about the October 1st Chapter Network book study that's coming up and the knowledge building event with the Read Alouds of Molly Ness. But the one we really want to focus on and emphasize on this slide today is the California Reading Coalition and TRL California Virtual Literacy Summit. This is a summit that has been put on originally by the California Reading Coalition for a number of years, and this year we are partnering up with them to put this event on. So we're really excited about it. We hope that you are able to join. There's a QR code there if you're able to scan it. Otherwise, we will be sharing information about that in various emails and social media. Kristen, did you have anything you wanted to add about that?
No, thank you. Although the QR code is right there, so if you snap it real quick, you can register now, but we'll bring it back around toward the end. Now I said that, and I'm going to change the slides.
What we know, and as everyone contributed, based on our vision, the reading crisis in California is solvable, and that's why we're here today. So thank you so much for taking your time on a Thursday evening to be a part of this meeting. We're really happy to have you here. Kristen?
Thank you. We are happy tonight to host some members from the Contra Costa County Office of Education. So right in our very own backyard, we have folks leading a fabulous grant opportunity, and it allows us to have some specific training and professional learning on structured literacy and the science of reading and all the things that you're going to learn about tonight. So we are happy to host them, and I'm going to turn it over to Julie to get us started on this presentation.
All right, and Michelle has our slide deck running, and Kristen and Jordan, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening with you all. We are really thrilled and feel quite fortunate to be able to share our resources with you. So I'm going to give you the big picture of what our project is all about, who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to turn it over to our team so that you get a sense of the more specific details of all that we have to offer. At the end of our presentation, we'll have a Q&A. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, and then we'll get to the end and we'll have an opportunity to address your questions at that time. All right, so Project Arise is our project name for the Reading, Instruction, and Intervention, or RII grant program, which is funded by the state of California. The aim of our grant project is to provide professional learning resources around reading, instruction, and intervention to K-12 educators across the state of California. So everything that we're going to share with you this evening is actually funded by the state and comes to you at no cost. So when you look at our 4-year effort and what we're aiming to accomplish, these are the 4 goals we're targeting. If you were to read the nitty-gritty of each one of these goals, what you're going to find is that we are really centered on providing professional learning and building the capacity of educators and leaders to lead evidence-based literacy instruction. As a collective Project Arise team, we are all centered around a common vision. Next slide, Michelle. This is our common vision. We are really centered and focused on empowering educators to elevate inclusive and effective literacy instruction for every single one of our learners. Next slide. All right, so you're all probably wondering, who is our team and what are we all about? This is the Project Arise team, and realizing that vision that we just shared is a full team effort. The Contra Costa County Office team is our lead agency in overseeing the project, and joining us are 2 amazing county office teams, Glenn and San Diego counties. You'll meet a couple of our county office teammates this evening as they are sharing the presentation duties with me. We also have this incredible group of expert content partners who all contribute to our professional learning offerings. Next slide. Our professional learning resources are categorized and available based on the audience that we serve. We have offerings available statewide, like I mentioned, to any educator in California at no cost. And I think it's really important to note that anyone responsible for educating or mentoring our learners in literacy, whether they are in our schools or in our communities, can really take advantage of our resources. It's not just for classroom teachers, it's for anybody that works with our students. Our plan is to share these statewide resources during the rest of our time together, and we invite you to share them in your communities as well. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Kerwin, who's going to start telling you a little bit more deeply about what we offer.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Kerwin from Contra Costa County, and I'm super excited to tell you about the statewide learning resources that we have available through Project Arise. And so we'll be telling you about the courses that we have, the virtual community of practice, and the literacy workshops that we have coming up this year. And so really the centerpiece of our project offerings are our free asynchronous online courses. And these are available to anyone in California, be it parents, educators, community members who want to learn more about supporting kids with literacy development. In fact, right now, my friend Nicole's putting in the chat the link to sign up. So if you haven't had the opportunity to sign up for these courses, they're free, y'all. So please take the opportunity to do that. And that way, while we're talking through what is being offered, you can kind of see on your homepage what you might want to dig into first if you want to learn a bit more after the meeting today. So our courses come from 3 expert content partners. The Center for Whole Child Education at Arizona State University brought us our Executive Functions and Literacy course. TNTP provided Literacy is Equity, Foundational Skills, and Comprehension and Knowledge Building, really that evidence-based approach to literacy instruction. And then the National Center on Intensive Intervention has given us our intensive intervention courses. And we're going to be talking through a little bit more about what each of those looks like. And something super exciting to us and hopefully to people who want to register for the courses too is that you can earn units for course completion. So through the University of Pacific, we've partnered to offer 3 units for completion of the courses. So you can see here, you need to get all 5 of those completion certificates, and then you would just log an additional 12 hours of professional learning. And that could include things like coming to the Reading League meetings and collaborating. What do you know? So, and what's really even better, maybe better news, is that these credits are offered for $50 a unit, which is really a bargain if you're talking higher ed units. So we'll be sharing more information on how you can register for those because job one is completing the courses, and you're not going to do that by the end of today's call. So we are also excited to see how our project is spreading throughout the state. Our courses have been available since September of last year, and you can see over the course of the year where pockets in California are really diving into Project Arise. And so our goal is to see like blue. And I'm not talking politically, I'm talking reading, just blue across the map in terms of how many people are really engaging in our Project Arise courses. So, so we're really excited to see that even districts and educators outside of our counties are really diving in and learning from these materials. This just is a neat infographic that shows you the different components of each of our courses. And we're going to be diving into those a little bit further. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily Green.
Hello. Excuse me. Hi all, my name is Emily Green and I am an Ed Services Coordinator up in Glenn County. And so yeah, we're going to take a closer look at some of the courses, starting with 2 of the 3 that were developed by TNTP. So the Literacy is Equity course really frames the why of the learning and helps participants to understand the state of reading proficiency in the US and in California, and how these gaps disproportionately disadvantage low-income students and students of color and our multilingual learners and students with learning and thinking differences. And so as part of that, the course from the top introduces users to 2 probably very familiar frameworks to most of us here tonight, the Simple View of Reading and Scarborough's Reading Rope. And those are kind of guiding and referenced frequently through the rest of the course. Is really the guiding force through the rest of the content. And so in addition to these frameworks, learners are also introduced to these 4 instructional best practices that promote equity, which also frame the content in the rest of the TNTP courses. So I'll give you a moment to read these over yourselves. And so both of the frameworks, as well as these best practices, are woven into and anchor the learning that is found in both the foundational skills as well as the comprehension and knowledge building course. And so that next course we're going to look at is that foundational skills course. And it's comprised of the 5 sections that you see listed here. Michelle, we go ahead to the next one. In the course, foundational skills instruction is couched in the context of a comprehensive model for how students learn to read and comprehend, including the brain processes that are involved. And from that, the key components of foundational skills are defined and explored in depth, including the instructional practices and routines that most support those brain processes. So if you're looking for the why behind foundational skills instructions, examples of what that looks like in an actual classroom, and tools to support in planning for instruction, this is a great course for any and all of those objectives. And I'm going to pass it off to my colleague to talk about the next set of courses.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, so I get to talk to you about comprehension. The comprehension course really dives into the importance of what comprehension is. That's critical skill for academic success and lifelong learning. And there's 4 modules in this comprehension course. It starts with an understanding that complex text is really essential because it helps students grasp those deeper meanings and develop those critical thinking skills that we know are missing sometimes. Next is the role of background knowledge and vocabulary. We're looking at applying key instructional strategies to ensure equity. The research tells us that if students are going to grasp and retain words and comprehend text, they're going to need that incremental, repeated exposure in a variety of contexts to really hone in on all the words that they're trying to learn. And then in that evidence-based discussion and writing section, we'll learn a little bit about what that integration of reading, writing, and discussion looks like in the classroom. And if you are an at-home mom or dad, which we saw in the chat, what that ideally would look like in your conversations with your student, with your child. And when students have those opportunities to discuss and write about what they've said, we find, of course, that their reading comprehension is strengthened, and then they build their ability to use language effectively. And then the final module, there's a template for planning across quarters. And the idea is to sort of keep that momentum going for our change, right? That's our goal here. And the template includes 4 focus areas: foundational skills, complex text, building knowledge, and vocabulary. So we're really looking at those ways to really beef up our instruction. And as you look at these graphics directly from the course, you'll probably see some familiar concepts and maybe some additional, such as prioritizing that cultural context and recognizing how culture is constructed in text and allowing students to have the opportunity to connect with text. You also might recognize that icon at the bottom, and that's our simple view of reading, but slightly different. This is that connection to writing, and that concept that we can't have decoding without encoding or encoding without decoding. We need both. So if you are looking for tools to help you understand text difficulty and support students, or strategies for building knowledge and vocabulary, this would be a great course for you to dive into. Additionally, I'm going to talk to you briefly about our multilingual language learner best practices. And you'll see these popping up throughout the 3 courses: the literacy as equity, the foundational skills, and the comprehension course. And the idea is to give you just-in-time supports, to give you tools that will support your multilingual learners that are right embedded into the course at the time you might need it. And just want to point out that all of these tips were written and researched by our San Diego Mega Department, and that's the Multilingual Education and Global Achievement. Those are also really well researched and easily implemented. So if you're in the classroom, these are great tips for you. And while those tips are built into the courses, there's also these great questions that we can ask ourselves as we're thinking about delivering instruction. So are we activating and building background knowledge to help our students connect that new information to what they already know, making all that knowledge easier and easier to retain? And then are we integrating language development with those differentiated scaffolds? Are we ensuring that all students, regardless of their proficiency in language, can access and understand the content? And I know it feels like a lot, but it's, these are those important things. We just start with one step, making sure, for example, that we're embedding that oral language development opportunities. Michelle and I just did a great opportunity we had some opportunities to talk about read alouds, and they're just a great option for students to be able to develop that oral language. And then finally, making sure that we're leveraging students' home language and literacy so that we can help build on their existing knowledge and abilities. And we'll turn it back to Michelle.
All right, so the courses that Emily and Nicole talked about are kind of what you would expect from literacy courses for educators, right? Building that foundational skills, building the comprehension and knowledge building piece. But this next course really helps us think holistically about a student's skills and development. So this course, the next course is on executive functions and literacy. And so it really helps us explore the research of the role that executive functions play in our literacy development, and also reflecting on how executive functions show up in your literacy and in reading and writing for students. And so in the second course for EF and Literacy Context Matters, you really dive into a student's internal context, so the stress and emotions that they may be feeling, and also their external context, their environment and relationships, and learn how we can help support and create a more supportive classroom context to support those areas. And then the last one, skill building and executive functions and literacy, describes best practices for supporting students' executive functions throughout your reading and writing instruction. And so when we're talking about executive functions, we're talking about these 3 core executive functions come up throughout the course. The first being inhibitory control, or having to control our attention and behavior. And this shows up in reading and writing when we're just trying to attend and focus on a reading task. And sometimes your neighbor is a little too distracting, especially when you're just a 6-year-old. And so the next is working memory. So being able to hold on to information in our mind and mentally work with it. And this shows up with the youngest readers as they're trying to hold the sounds in their brain to blend them together. Dog. And then with cognitive flexibility and having to change our perspective or approach in order to solve a problem. And this came up today with some 2nd graders when we were talking about the word drift and how a boat drifted away. And when I asked what they meant, the kids thought I meant Tokyo drift, like, you know, and I'm like, okay, you've seen that in the movies. Great connection, but that's not what this is. So having to change our view on something in order to fit a new context. And so these really do show up a lot through our reading and writing instruction. And we like to show this adapted view of Scarborough's rope that shows the role of executive function in just literacy and learning in general. So it really is the thread that holds all the pieces together so that students can learn to read. And so if you're looking for tools to help reflect on your own practice in terms of supporting executive functions, and then strategies and different activities that you could do to support students in your own context, then this course is for you. And I'm going to turn it back to Nicole.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so the final course and you can take these courses in any order, but the final course that we're going to talk about tonight is our intensive intervention. And that comes from NCII, and there's 3 30-minute modules. In the first module, we learn about how intensive intervention is designed to meet the needs of students with those severe and persistent learning difficulties. So when we're looking at these students that are most in need. Then we learn about the 5 steps of data-based individualization. And we start with a validated intervention program and look at progress monitoring as well as data analysis. And then in that 3rd module, the taxonomy of intervention intensity gives us a way to select and evaluate and then intensify those interventions based on strength, dosage, and alignment with student needs. Through that course, you're going to find out a little bit about what intensive intervention is and what it isn't. So it's not based on those anecdotal informational opinions, but it actually relies on our data to target and measure our supports. And since it requires a lot of steps, it's not for all students who are struggling, but it's really supposed to be targeted to our highest need students, our small number of them. So if you are looking for developing your knowledge around intensive intervention or ways to collect data on a student's learning journey, or steps and resources for enhancing those intervention efforts, this will be a great course for you to look into. And I'm going to turn it over to Emily. Emily's going to tell us a little bit more about our opportunities.
Yeah, so in addition to the course, the advantage of which to an online asynchronous course is that participants can learn at their own pace and according to their own calendar, completely independently. But that also means that learning and application of that learning is happening in isolation. And for many, that meaning making happens much more effectively and enjoyably in community. And so we have a virtual community of practice that is intended to bridge that gap. So participants are doing the bulk of their learning on their own, but then coming together to share ideas, puzzle through implications, problem solve around implementation and refining their instructional practices. And it also paces the course out over the year with some like artificial deadlines for completion of individual courses, which for a procrastinator like myself is always a helpful thing. So the first session we held at the end of August, and the next one is the first week of October. So if you're interested or you know of folks who might be interested in joining in this community of learners together, it is certainly not too late to join. The content partners who contributed their expertise in the development of the courses are also hosting workshops over the course of the year. So there is a set in the fall starting next week, and then another set in the spring starting late February. I guess that's maybe late winter. Bridging between those two timelines is a two-part series on biliteracy instruction facilitated by the San Diego County Office of Education. And all of the above offerings can stand independent of the coursework, but they also dovetail really nicely with the content seen there as an extra layer of learning and conversation around these topics. They're all on Zoom in the afternoon after school hours, and they're all free of cost. So again, if you're interested, we welcome you to register for any and all of them, but also share the word with other educators who you think might be interested too. And as resources are developed through those opportunities that we've already talked about, as well as the work that each of us are doing within the schools and districts local to our region, we are adding those to the California Educators Together site for those who are educators in California to be able to create their account and then access free of cost any of the resources aligned and curated out of the grant work that we're doing. So I invite you to check out those resources also. And then if you're looking for more information about our project, about resources, about professional learning, visit our website, check out our social media pages, or reach out to our team.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I make one more plug?
Yeah.
Okay, if you are a leader out there and you are looking for a thought partner on how best to utilize these resources, or you want to have a group of your educators enroll in the courses together, we can set you up in a group and give you administrative rights to watch everybody's progress. So if you have questions or want to think alongside any one of us, there is a survey that you can complete and fill out, and we will get back to you. So as leaders, if you would like some thought partner in our resources and how to use them, please reach out. And thank you, Kirsten, for letting me jump in for one last plug.
Yeah, no problem. I want to make sure we have a chance to answer any questions that folks have. You can unmute or you can drop it in the chat. And I wanted to ask, if the person taking the course doesn't want or need the units, is there still a certificate of completion?
Yes. They can, when they complete the course, it comes up as an option to print a certificate.
Great.
This is Amy Luter. I have a question. And first and foremost, this is amazing. And I love that you have it all so excellently organized. This slide deck that's created right here, is it linked to the link that was shared in the chat, or will we have the ability to go back through this slide deck on the little tidbits for each one of the sessions?
We could share a PDF of the slides with Kristen when she sends out the follow-up. Is that okay, Kristen?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, I'm gonna turn off that big screen so we can kind of see each other's little square faces. I have a question in the chat about, is it the same as letters training? Do you want to annotate the differences?
I would say that it doesn't go in the content that's in our courses gives you a great level set in general knowledge building with some application. I think letters is 2 years, right? A year in 2 different volumes, and it's much more intensive. So there are some differences between what we offer and letters. Team, would you add anything further to that?
Nice.
I'd add something. I think what you do would be a really good, like if someone was going to do letters and didn't have a lot of background, this would be a great intro. And then they could do letters and have a much better, deeper understanding of it.
Thank you, Marga. That's a great idea.
I totally agree, Marga. And also, you know, if you don't have access to letters, if you don't have the time or funding to do letters, this is a great place to jump in.
And I'll just jump in anecdotally that in my region where I'm supporting, I have a couple districts where they have like their reading specialists and interventionists are doing letters, but their classroom teachers are doing the Project Arise modules. And then the interventionists and specialists are doing like follow-up support based on what they're learning in letters to then supplement what's happening at the classroom level.
Nice. All right, any other questions from the audience? Thank you. All right, we're going to move into our breakout sessions for the member meeting. I'm going to just pause the recording.